Excuse me! Taxi!
Come on, what are you doing? This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And joining us now here on Cats and Cosby is Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin. And Senator, you're here with me and Ed Cox, of course, New York State GOP chair. And Senator, you were masterful yesterday. I was watching you in action, and there was Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. And he kept smirking, and you kept coming at him. Explain just, were you baffled at his performance before your committee yesterday?
Well, Rita, hello, Ed. Well, I mean, I didn't intend to display that level of anger, but as I'm just kind of walking through and asking him, what he knew that they were training these activists. He admitted to encouraging these trained activists, people support him, to go out there and basically obstruct justice. A acting ICE director talked about how the pamphlets for these activists show them how to get between law enforcement officials and the people they're trying to apprehend. In other words, put themselves into harm's way. And as I'm kind of describing this, saying that I would never ask my supporters to put themselves into harm's way. You knew something bad could happen. Something happened. He's just sitting there smirking. And it was just infuriating. And of course, the reason he's smirking is he knows the corporate media will never hold him accountable for it. He gets paid for this crap, but it's just sick. It was despicable. And again, I never intended to kind of display that anger, but you would have to be in the committee hearing. They're not that far away from you. As I'm just kind of going through this, he's just got this smug smirk on his face. It's just infuriating.
Senator, I don't blame you. I was angry watching it. I think the American public was angry at him watching it. The other thing, too, I found that Keith Ellison, here he is, the Attorney General of Minnesota. There's $9 billion, maybe even more, of fraud there. And he didn't seem to have any excuse and didn't really seem to care. Did he have any reasoning for what happened? I mean, he's the Attorney General of that state. He wouldn't even say at the beginning, Senator, that he was the Attorney General. I mean, that was that opening moment where it said, hey, can you confirm who you are? He just seemed defiant.
Yeah, Josh Hawley did a masterful job, acting as a prosecutor. And listen, he just denies everything. He came in, testifying like, "Oh no, Minnesota, we're fully cooperating with ICE." It's a big lie. I mean, those tragedies, those deaths, never would have happened had it not been for the fact that Minnesota wasn't cooperating. The people like him didn't encourage their supporters to put themselves into harm's way. So no, he's just, and then of course he accuses Josh Hawley and myself of performance art, and everything we said is a lie. Everything we talked about was God's honest truth. And he just sits up there and again, he knows, as leftists do, that the legacy media will not hold them accountable. And they're so smug because of that.
Yeah, it really is troubling. I mean, we just need to get to the truth. I mean, $9 billion doesn't matter, what side of the political aisle you're on. That's a bad thing. I'm looking at Ed Cox, of course, New York State GOP chair.
Yes, Senator, I really looking at it from afar, I see what they were trying to do is to cover up their culpability and stirring up the crowds and attracting attention to something else, to cover up their culpability for that $9 billion home care Medicaid fraud. That's a huge fraud, and they were certainly at least trying to cover it up, if not actually involved in it for political purposes. And so what they were doing.
We had an interesting hearing earlier in the week with Josh Hawley, chaired a subcommittee, where we really started talking about and starting to stitch together the foreign funding of this, the transnational criminal organizations. Things aren't just a one-off. Okay, so a lot of people are saying that what they were literally doing in ginning up those protests in Minnesota was trying to distract from the massive fraud. That is also part and parcel of this mass migration coming in, a borderless world, bringing all these immigrants, plus up our census so that they can get more members of Congress in these sanctuary states and cities. I mean, this is a concerted effort. This is well organized, and we're just trying to stitch it all together. But you're exactly right. this is all related.
They definitely benefited politically from that fraud with the Somali community there.
Yeah, and Josh Hawley was talking about how just a few days after he had this 52-minute audio recording of him sitting down with the people who were eventually convicted of fraud, he accepted, I think, a $10,000 donation from him. And his family members who are also in politics have gotten donations from these folks. And, of course, the Somalis pretty well voted in a solid block for Democrats, the people that were willing to hide and overlook their fraud and corruption.
It must be a coincidence, right? Just the timing must all be, before we let you go, Senator Ron Johnson, I got to ask you about also the funding for Department of Homeland Security, ICE. I can't believe, I mean, it's going to be coming very soon in a matter of hours. It looks like, tell me, does it look like we're headed to another government shutdown, all because only one Democrat, Fetterman, said he would support Department of Homeland Security and ICE?
Well, DHS, they won't get funded. But TSA, those agents will still be working. Hopefully the White House can come to some agreement with Democrats. But right now, looks like Democrats, again, they're just arrogant. They're smug. They realize they won't be held accountable for the shutdown. So it always seems like the Republicans have to make all the concessions.
It's amazing. I never thought we'd be in this moment where they said, no, we don't want to support Homeland Security. Senator Ron Johnson, thank you. Again, you were, it was a masterclass watching you yesterday. You were superb, and keep fighting the good fight for America to get to the bottom of all the fraud and everything else, and have a great weekend. Wonderful to have you here.
Take care. God bless.